Okay, everybody, you've made it here to the first of this four-part series on foundations of crow pose. Crow pose in Sanskrit is Bakasana, so you'll hear me use that word quite a bit. And this is really a series for a multitude of different kinds of people. So if you're someone that already has a really established crow pose, then you might just use this as an opportunity to kind of deconstruct, dissect it, approach it from different ways, have fun with it. If you're someone that this has kind of been an elusive shape, then you might actually discover some alternatives to allowing you to play with the shape without necessarily being fully on the hands. And if you're a teacher, then you might actually find yourself emboldened with some new tools of how to introduce this shape to your students. So I'm welcoming in creativity and inspiration in this series, and we're going to try to pack quite a bit into each of these four classes. I will let you know that in today's class, which I'm calling like preparation for flight, that we're actually not going to do the full crow pose today. So you can just, if you were worried about that, just like set the worry aside, because we're not even going to go there. We're going to do it in all these different orientations first. And if you don't already, one of these guys or something that's shaped like a block could come in handy. You can just have it within hand's reach of your mat. And let's start in child's pose with the knees and the thighs parallel to each other. So knees and thighs parallel near the back of your mat in child's pose. I'm keeping my head lifted just so that you can hear me well. And we'll just land here for about 3 breaths. And as you breathe here, you might just notice that there's a slight rounded quality to the spine, which we're going to continue to emphasize throughout today's practice. And you might also be aware that the pelvis is in what we would call a posterior tilt, where the pelvis is actually rotated back. Give yourself one more breath here, inhaling fully, exhaling completely. And then as you inhale, shift forward to a half plank so the knees stay down, but you have a straight line from the crown of the head to the knees. Give yourself one more inhale, broaden the collarbones, look forward. And then as you exhale, lower halfway down, allowing the elbows to skim the sides of the ribs. Pause for a moment. This is a position you'll need to memorize. And then go ahead and lower all the way to the floor. Press into the tops of the feet as you lift up cobra pose, back bend. And then slide the forearms forward, finding a sphinx pose. Push the forearms down, big inhale, looking forward. Keep the forearms rooted as you lift the ribs, the pelvis, tuck the toes, and lift the thighs and knees. You're in a forearm plank. Now we're going to stay here a couple of breaths. As you push down through the forearms, I actually want you to allow the scapula to move off the back and actually round the upper back like you were blowing up a balloon in your upper back. Look in between your forearms, one more inhale. And then lower the knees, the thighs, the pelvis, the belly, back bend, heart pulls forward, look forward, you're in your sphinx. Slide the palms back, you're in your cobra. Push into the palms, all fours, cat pose. So the tailbone drops towards the back of the knees, chin to chest, round the spine. And then all the way back to that child's pose where we started. So we'll take that sequence 2 more times. Inhale forward to half plank. Exhale, lower halfway down. This would be a half chaturanga. Lower all the way down to the mat and inhale up to a cobra position. And then slide one forearm and both forearms forward. You're in your sphinx. Ground down through the forearms. Look forward. Eyes are open and alert. Then start to peel the pelvis, the thighs, tuck the toes, lift the knees. You're in a forearm plank. As you ground through the forearms, broaden the upper back, round the upper spine, look in between the forearms, eyes stay open. And then coming out of that mindfully, knees, thighs, pelvis, belly. Inhale, pull the heart forward. Exhale, slide the palms back simultaneously if you can. Push down through the palms. In all fours, round to your cat pose. So similar to crow pose here. And then hips to heels, child's. One more time through that little warm-up sequence. Inhale forward, knees stay down. Exhale, lower half chaturanga. Notice that your body's moving forward and down. Lower all the way to the mat. Inhale, lift up, cobra. And then forearms slide forward into that sphinx. Let the repetition be soothing. You're in sphinx. And then you peel ribs, belly, thighs, tuck the toes, lift the knees. Give yourself a breath here. Round the upper back. Scapula move apart, stretching the rhomboids, engaging the transverse abdominis in the front of the belly. And then lowering knees, thighs, pelvis, abdomen. Look forward, inhale. Exhale, palms back. Pushing down through the palms, you pass through all fours. Round the spine, find your cat pose. And then briefly come forward to cow pose. So drop the belly, lift the head and the heart, and just get a little stretch on the front of the abdomen. Then bring the spine into neutral. And for this next little sequence here, it's going to look like nothing's happening. But as you inhale, I want you to think of pulling your knees towards the back of your ribs as if you would squinch your mat together. So energetically, knees towards the back of the wrists. Pull. And now go the opposite direction. Fingertips forward, toes back, as if you would rip your mat in half. Do that twice more. Knees towards the back of the ribs. Feel that contracting in the front of the belly. And then rip the mat apart. And then one more time, knees towards the back of the ribs, back of the wrists, and then fingertips forward, toes back. Now tuck the toes, all 10 of the toes, and go ahead and posteriorly tilt the pelvis. So tailbone rolls towards the back of the knees. You feel the low back start to round, and push into the balls of the feet and hover your knees. Now think cat pose, push the palms down, blow up the upper back, round the upper spine, but keep looking at that space in between your hands. And then energetically, as we hold here for 3 more breaths, think of drawing your knees towards the back of your ribs. Yeah, knees towards the hands, tailbone down, blow up the upper back. One more inhale here. Ooh, build a little heat, and then soften that, lower the knees down, maybe walk the hands forward, one hand's length. We'll find our first down dog of the practice. Lift the hips up and back, down dog. And just let this be intuitive for a moment. If you want to bicycle the legs, sway the hips, maybe you just need to kind of move the belly, stretching it out after some of those deep contractions. And then we're going to start to move through some sun salutations that introduce the shape of crow pose in all of these micro ways. So we'll look to the front of the mat and walk or step the feet to the front of the mat. Let's take a half lift here. Inhale, lifting up halfway. Exhale, folding in, nose towards the shins. And then circle sweep the arms out and all the way up. And bring the palms of the hands in towards heart center. Relaxing the arms just for a second. So we're going to move through 2 Surya Namaskaram B, which incorporate lunges. And in this Surya Namaskaram B, we're going to welcome in different component parts of the crow pose so that you start to build a sort of blueprint in the body for what you will eventually collectively bring together for the pose. So standing at the front of the mat, you find your mountain pose, feet planted, arms alongside you. We'll inhale, circle sweep the arms out and up. And bend the knees, sink the hips down. This is your chair pose. We're going to take a crow chair hybrid. So we're going to inhale here. As you exhale, bring your hands down to the floor or the mat. Try to have the palms flat, and then rock up onto the balls of the feet and tuck your knees behind your armpits. We'll take 2 breaths here. Looking forward and just feeling, maybe even playing with slightly shifting the weight forward into the hands. Just noticing what it feels like to feel that distribution shift. Then lower the heels down. Step left foot back, right foot back. You're in a full plank. Inhale there. You could lower the knees for that half chaturanga or full chaturanga down to the mat. Inhale either cobra or upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. We're going to lead with the right foot. So lift your head, look forward. Move your right thumb a little bit in towards your left thumb, and then step your right foot into that space that just opened up outside your right hand. You're in a lizard pose. Melt the pelvis down, lower the left knee, and untuck your left toes. Now, just like we did in our chaturanga, soften the elbows, but not out. They're in a little bit. Broaden the collarbones, look forward. And then squeeze your right knee in towards your right shoulder. Maybe it even touches and hugs your right shoulder. One more breath right here. And then tuck the left toes, lift the left knee, step back plank. We'll move through a vinyasa. Again, you could do half chaturanga or traditional, cobra or upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. We'll look forward. You may need to move the left thumb towards the right thumb and then step the left foot forward into that space. Melt right knee down, untuck the right toes. And then I'm looking to soften my elbows, drop my chest, but broaden my collarbones. And then take this left knee and squeeze it in. Yes. So when we think of crow pose, we often think of flying, lifting up, but in crow pose, you actually move forward and down. And then step back, downward plank position, move through your vinyasa, chaturanga, upward facing, downward facing. We'll take 5 breaths. And this should be a point of rest in the practice. A long time ago, many years ago, I heard the teacher Jason Crandall say the phrase that any degree of the pose is the pose, and it's really stuck with me. It's one of my philosophies as a teacher is really making all shapes accessible, celebrating that we may not be able to do the traditional shape, but maybe there's other forms of it that we can access. Let's look forward, walk, step, or lightly hop the feet to the front of the mat. Then inhale, lift up halfway. We're going to return to that crow chair, palms down, knees to the back of the arms or the armpits, up on the balls of the feet, and maybe shift the weight slightly forward. You'll feel the pads of the fingers sort of grip the mat as if you were palming a basketball. Then lower the heels, sweep the arms up, chair pose, Utkatasana, and stand up. Closing that sequence out. We'll do that one more time with one little add-on. So inhale, lengthen those arms. Exhale, just settle in. Here we go. Sweep those arms forward and up, sit back. That's your chair pose. We'll take that crow chair. Hands down, knees to the back of the armpits. Shift forward, take a full breath here. Feel those arms wake up. Then lower the heels. Step back, right foot, left foot. You're in your plank and you move through your vinyasa of choice. Back bend either cobra or upward dog. Downward facing dog. We'll lead with the left. So again, you might need to move left foot, hand in. Left foot comes forward. Option to keep the back knee lifted this time. Look forward, bend the elbows, soften them in. Keep the collarbones broad. Squeeze the left knee into that left shoulder. One more big breath here. And then listening carefully, lower your right knee, untuck your right toes, and step your left knee back next to your right. Bring your hands outside your knees. 3 rounds of Lolasana. So you inhale here. As you exhale, push down, lift your knees and your shins round the spine. 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale, round and lift. 1 more time, inhale. Working on that transverse abdominis, round and lift. And then we'll take our vinyasa as we walk the hands forward. You could keep the knees down or lift them. Chaturanga. Up dog. Down dog. Second side, maybe move that right hand in. Step the right foot forward. Lizard pose, you could keep the knee lifted as I will, or you're welcome to lower it. Look forward, soften the elbows, drop in. Squeeze that right knee into the right shoulder. Full deep breath. Moving through that Lolasana one more time. Lower the knee. Then slide right knee back next to left. Hands alongside the knees. Inhale. Exhale, lift. You could even try to lift one foot. Lower down. Maybe you lift the other foot. One more time. And lift. And vinyasa. Walk the hands forward. Knees could stay down or lift. Chaturanga. Up dog. Down dog for 5 breaths. Checking in with the breath, noticing if it's getting shorter. We want to keep those inhales and exhales nice and long. Even when we're in a challenging flow, still finding a sense of ease in the body. One more big breath here. Allowing ourselves to have fun as we practice something that may be quite challenging. Look forward, walk, step, or hop the feet. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold in. We've got that last crow chair. So palms down, rock up onto the balls of the feet, knees to the armpits. Shift the weight slightly forward, full breath here. And down. Lower the heels, sweep the arms up, Utkatasana chair. And stand. Circle sweep those arms out and up. Exhale, fold over the legs. Walk your feet back to downward facing dog. And then lower your knees to the middle of your mat and locate your block. Good. Have it right near you because we're going to come back into that downward facing dog. And from the down dog, hop your feet to the middle of the mat. Take your block behind you at the lowest height and come into Malasana, squat pose, sitting on your block. So sitting on your block, and you sort of snuggle the heels in. So you're in a squat here. And reach your arms out in front of you. Flex your hands as if you were going to push them into the wall in front of you. And then do exactly that. So you can really see my shoulders here. Push the wall in front of you and notice how the scapula move off your back. Now amplify that by actually rounding the spine. Rock up onto the balls of the feet and try to slide the knees underneath the arms. So you're essentially in crow pose, seated on your block. Look in between your thumbs. Keep pushing and rounding. Try to get the knees as high up the arms as you can. Notice what part of the abdomen is contracting and how the spine is lengthening. One more breath here. And then soften that. Lower the heels, lower the hands. Lift your seat, Uttanasana. Let the head dangle, spine dangle. And I mentioned it previously, but I'll say it again because this is something to really emphasize in this series. When we do an arm balance, like Bakasana crow pose, even though our tendency might be to think about going up, the direction of the pose is actually forward and down. So you should be able to see that block behind you. Imagine that it's like the branch of a tree, and as a little crow, you want to perch on that branch. So place one foot and then both feet up on the block and squat down on your little branch. Beautiful. Place the palms on the mat. Notice what we did in lizard pose, you're now doing it right here on your branch. You've got the knees right here by the arms. Start to lift the bum just a little bit. So there's our lift, but now we're gonna go forward and down, but we're not gonna fly today. So bend the elbows a little bit like chaturanga, shift the weight slightly forward, and just feel the distribution of weight. Move forward and down. How the hands become the foundation of the body, and the feet naturally become lighter. 2 more breaths here. Last inhale. And then settling back on your little branch, take one foot off, the other foot off, and again, Uttanasana. We're going to take one more version of our crow pose today. So take the block, move it out and off your mat. Walk the hands forward to downward facing dog. We're going to add in one final vinyasa here as we shift forward to plank. Lower through our chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then we're going to jump the legs through and come to lie on our backs. So crossing ankles, jumping through, lie on your backs. Legs up. Legs straight up towards the ceiling. Reach your arms up towards the ceiling and again flex the palms back so that the palms are facing up towards the ceiling. Spread your fingers wide and then bend your knees and bring them to the backs of your arms. Lower your heels to your glutes. Now begin to push the palms up towards the ceiling and slide the knees down the back of the arms towards the armpits. Heels towards buttocks, knees towards armpits, palms towards ceiling. Maybe try to lift your tailbone a little bit more. And then release everything. Extend your arms overhead, your legs up to the ceiling. You're in a capital L shape, and just take a few rolls of the ankles here. So we would call that Supta Bakasana, reclined crow pose. And it's actually an option for you to practice anytime crow pose is offered in a class. It's really good if you're ever nurturing a wrist or shoulder injury because it accesses all the same core muscles. We'll take that one more time. So reach the arms up, flex the wrists back so palms are facing upwards. Bend the knees, knees to the back of the arms, heels to the buttocks. Start to push the palms up to the ceiling. Slide the knees towards the armpits. Lift the tailbone. Feel the lower belly contracting, transverse abdominis. Feel the broadening in the upper back across the scapula. One more inhale here. And then release that down. Place the arms alongside you, feet on the mat approximately hip distance apart. Push into the feet and roll up into bridge pose. And that bridge should feel really nice on the belly after all of that contraction in those different crow variations. We'll be here for 3 to 4 more breaths. If you're interested in a bind, you could roll the shoulders onto the back, interlace the fingers here, and get a bit more chest expansion. One more breath. And then releasing the hands, unrolling the shoulders, lowering one vertebra at a time. Draw the knees into the chest just enough to gain some momentum to come up and over to all fours position. Beautiful. And then we're going to do a little bit of play here on all fours. So we'll start to extend the right leg back and lift the right leg up, parallel to the floor. We're not going to do the arms here. Hands are going to stay down. Inhale, looking forward, eyes open. Exhale, take your right knee towards your right armpit and round. Holding here, you're essentially in a half crow. Maybe tuck your left toes, lift your left knee, and hover. 2 more breaths. One more inhale. Exhale, lower left knee. Extend and lengthen the right leg. Lower right knee. Walk the hands back. Circle sweep the arms out and up. Ustrasana. Now keep in mind, we've been moving the spine this way the whole class. So this is not going to be the deepest back bend of your life. This is just for balance. Circle sweep the arms. You could place them on your low back. You could slide them down the backs of the thighs. Or if the heels are accessible, you can find the heels and find camel. 3, 2. Inhale, heart lifts up. Exhale, take your time returning to all fours. We'll take a breath just to land there. And then we'll take that little half crow on the second side as we extend the left leg back and up. And then bend that left knee in towards the left armpit, round the spine. You could stay right here, or for added heat, tuck the right toes and lift the right knee. 2. 1. Lower the right knee. Extend that left leg. One more Ustrasana camel, left knee down. Hands come back, sweep out and up. Big inhale. And then as you exhale, you could keep it really soft and subtle, just hands on the low back. You could slide them down the back of the thighs or hands to heels. 2. Inhale, coming up. Exhale from all fours. We'll come all the way onto the back. So we'll turn and rotate onto the spines. As we start to slow down the practice, we'll draw the knees in towards the chest. We'll take the arms out wide, palms facing down, and let your knees fall to the right. Simple spinal twist. If it feels natural and good in your body to look over the left arm, you're welcome to do so. Knowing that sometimes we only give ourselves credit for doing something when we do accomplish kind of like the biggest, greatest version of that thing. When there's all these small celebrations that we often completely ignore, or we don't warrant them as worthy of being recognized or celebrated. And I would argue that's simply not the case. Rolling the head back to center. If you had turned it, knees come back to center, and then just allow the knees to go to the other direction, to the left. Maybe gazing to the right. And so one of the things that I hope that you gain from this series is the ability to really celebrate doing any multitude of variations of this pose. And celebrating them as completely valid options. As worthy in their own right. And then head comes back to center, knees come back to center. If you need a final squeeze or a final happy baby, you're welcome to take that. We're going to move into about a 90-second Shavasana. So as you're ready, extending the legs and the arms, really letting the body go to sleep for a brief little micro nap here. And for these micro Shavasanas, I often do a really quick scan of the soles of the feet and the palms of my hand, releasing any tension there. Scanning my face, particularly my eyes and my tongue, releasing any tension there. And then scanning the pelvis and releasing any tension there. A reminder that we are not our physical bodies or the thoughts in our mind, but that we are a pure and peaceful consciousness. And that is within us always. allow the next breath to become a little bit more vibrant, energized, wiggling fingers and toes. And then in your own way and in your own time, you begin to make your way back up to a comfortable seat. So that was our pre-flight, that sort of checklist in the body of what muscles and what muscle memory we would need to access to come into Bakasana crow pose. Next week will be test flight, where we get our first chance to really fully get on the hands and see if we can start to put some of these component parts together. As we close the practice, you might bring the hands onto the body, a nice gesture of gratitude, or if it feels good to you to bring the palms of the hands together, that's another option. I'll close with a very simple peace chant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Jai Shri Sakaru Maharaj Ki.